It's great to say hello to John Rothstein, CBS Sports College Basketball Insider and host of the College Hoops Today podcast. And John, we know Wally owes you a payback on a bet, hasn't paid it. Despite that, you're joining us, so we're grateful for that.
Well, Bill, just because of how much I admire your work all these years, we're going to get to Wally later. He has amnesia when he has to pay off his debts.
Monica and I have also learned that, haven't we, Monica?
We're taking note.
John, we saw you last summer. You were engaged, and you're still engaged, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, we had to postpone the wedding to 2021. I still plan on going through with it. But, Bill, you extend things 12 months. You never know what the other side is going to say. So I'll keep you guys updated. Maybe that's some content for later shows as we get closer to September and October.
All right, that sounds good. All right, the big story, of course, for the Knicks. They are going to, at least for now, slated to have the 8th overall pick in the draft in the first round. What does this mean in terms of who they might end up with, John?
Well, I think it's important for everybody to understand that this is not the NBA draft or an NBA draft that's going to feature necessarily a billboard-type talent at the top. You can get the best player in the draft down the road at 8, 12, or 15. It's not necessarily going to be like last year where you had 3 players at the top with Zion Williamson, John Morant, and RJ Barrett. And for the Knicks' perspective, you have to remember, everybody wants to relive 1985 and get a franchise-type talent like the Knicks had with Patrick Ewing. There is nothing wrong with hitting a single. I don't know how many franchise-type players you're going to see at the NBA level out of this draft, but I think there's a number of players that can be capable starters and contributors at the NBA level. And talking to a lot of executives and personnel from the NBA over the last couple of days, I think that bodes well for teams as well that have late first-round picks and high second-round picks, which the Knicks have.
All right, John. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say that the top 3 for you would be Ball, Edwards, Wiseman.
Yes.
So at 8, around 8, who's a guy that you think the Knicks should keep their eyes on?
Well, to me, the guy with the safest floor and the most known floor in the NBA draft lottery is Isaac Okoro from Auburn. He's already an NBA-capable defender. Now, he's not a great shooter, and I don't know if he's ever going to be a great shooter, at least not out of the gate. But he has an unbelievable ability to have a great impact on the game by not demanding shots. And I think if you look at it from a coaching perspective, the number one thing you think about in the NBA is shot distribution and whose hands the ball's in. So I look at all the attributes from an intangible perspective that Isaac Okoro brings to the table, and he's somebody that you could put on your roster and in 3 or 4 years have an OG Anunoby type of impact. I think a lot of Knicks fans would take that.
John, as you know, college basketball was upside down this year. It was crazy to watch, fun to watch, and we're bummed that we couldn't finish the season. A lot of parity. So this makes me wonder whether or not the Knicks can really pluck a good player out at 27 and maybe even at 38 in the second round. What kind of names are you thinking about deep in the draft this year?
Well, I think when you look deep in the draft, Wally, you have to look at certain players that I think were a little bit under the radar nationally and certain players that maybe may not translate as well to today's NBA as they would have maybe 20 or 25 years ago. I said this throughout the season. Isaiah Stewart on Washington, if he wasn't on Washington and you put him on Duke or Kentucky, would have been somebody that people would have compared to Elton Brand. Now, some people may look at the standing and say, well, Washington finished last in the Pac-12. If you remember, Washington was a team early in the season that won a neutral court game over Baylor and was a team that looked like a dark horse second weekend NCAA tournament team before Quade Green, their starting point guard, was ruled ineligible for the second semester. I talked to Darren Savino, who's the associate head coach at UCLA under Mick Cronin. He told me on Wednesday that far and away, Isaiah Stewart was the toughest player to defend in the Pac-12. Another front court name to keep an eye on. And, Wally, I thought about this the other day watching the Orlando Magic, watching Gary Clark now operate as a starting power forward. Stretching the defense is such a key part of today's NBA, even from the front court spots. And a guy, again, that was on a very good team that didn't get the attention he deserved is Jalen Smith from Maryland, who at 6'10", made 32 threes and shot over 35%, played 20 Big Ten games, and had 15 double-doubles. Those are two players, and I'm sure we'll get into more down the road, that if you could get in the late 20s, I don't know if they're going to be NBA stars, but they could definitely be NBA starters and contributors.
John, a lot of talk that the Knicks are interested in maybe drafting a point guard. Who do you see in terms of being at the top of the list?
Well, obviously, the top point guard in the NBA draft is LaMelo Ball. He's not going to be available at number 8, but then you start to split the atoms a little bit. Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State is somebody who is a very safe pick. He's somebody who I don't know if he's ever going to be a star in the NBA, but he has a very capable floor. He's a distributor. He shot over 40% from 3. There are some questions talking to NBA personnel about the mechanics of his jump shot, very similar to the way there were questions about Lonzo Ball's jump shot when he went into the NBA. But I think it's very important, if the Knicks are thinking about a point guard at number 8, to revisit the Cole Anthony dynamic. And this is why. When you think about the success that Roy Williams has had at North Carolina since he took over there in 2003, the backbone and the foundation of that program has been elite point guard play, from Ray Felton to Ty Lawson to Kendall Marshall to Kobe White. But I think it's important to point out that Cole Anthony played with by far the worst supporting cast out of any star point guard that played at North Carolina. Prior to last season, North Carolina's staff had to fill out its roster, and it opted to take 2 graduate transfers from mid-major programs to fill out its roster. Justin Pierce from William & Mary and Christian Keeling from Charleston Southern. So while Cole Anthony may have not had the best season, to his own admission, and I know he dealt with injuries as well, he didn't have the type of supporting cast that other great point guards had at North Carolina. Kobe White had Cam Johnson. Kendall Marshall had Harrison Barnes, John Henson, and Tyler Zeller. Ray Felton had Rashad McCants, Marvin Williams, and Sean May. Ty Lawson had, as you guys know, Danny Green and Tyler Hansbrough. So if Cole Anthony is somebody who the Knicks are going to consider at number 8, I think it's important to remind people that part of the reason that he struggled at times last year is because he did not play, with the caliber of players that other great North Carolina point guards are used to playing with, but he'll also play with significantly better players, obviously, if he gets to the NBA.
And I'm actually really glad you made that point, because in a draft class, to use Wally's word, with a bunch of parity, how much credit do you give in terms of making the decision? The type of system a guy comes from in terms of coaches who are well-respected and produce pros?
Well, I think it's a big thing you have to look at, Monica, and that's why, when you talk about, obviously, potentially getting some of the better players in this draft beyond the top 3, 4, 5 picks, you have to take all those things into consideration. And there's another player that, again, is right now projected to be at the latter part of the lottery, but I think could be one of the more productive players in his role down the road, and that's Saddiq Bey at Villanova. This is a guy who 2 years ago was initially committed to NC State, decommitted late, wound up at Villanova, and absolutely flourished the past 2 seasons at Villanova. Went from 45 made threes to 30 plus that as a sophomore. So he improved his made 3-point shots by 30 from his freshman to sophomore year, shot 45% from 3, can pass, dribble, and shoot at 6'8". And again, this is somebody who I don't know if he's going to be an NBA star, but if you told me in 2025 or 2026 that Saddiq Bey has grown into a Chris Middleton type of NBA player, I think that's a reasonable type of progression to anticipate because of where he's been schooled, and spending the last 15 years covering college basketball and spending so much time at Villanova. They are drilled daily with jump stops, with bounce passes, with shot fakes, with pivots. It's part of their arsenal. And you see right now the success that Villanova players are having at the NBA level. Ryan Arcidiacono has become a multi-year pro. Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, the list goes on and on. So from an IQ and a skill perspective, Saddiq Bey is another player that comes from a winning program, is multi-talented at 6'8", and again, made 30 more 3-point shots as a sophomore than he did as a freshman, and shot 45% from 3-point distance doing it.
Yeah, that's great player development. John, we're seeing the Knicks coaching staff kind of rounding into form. Kenny Payne going to be part of the staff with Tom Thibodeau. What is he going to bring to the table as far as player development and really getting the Knicks players to a high NBA level?
Well, first of all, you know this as well as anybody, Wally. One of the traits of being in college basketball is that highly successful people are always going to talk negatively about somebody. Nobody in college basketball has ever said a bad word about Kenny Payne. He is an unbelievable person. He's an unbelievable addition. He's one of the more likable people in the game of basketball at all levels. And obviously, when you're associated with John Calipari and you're associated with Kentucky, you're going to be labeled as an elite recruiter. But you talk to people in Lexington, and I've been down there a number of times since Kenny Payne has been at Kentucky. The area where Kenny Payne shines is player development. He gets players better. Players love about his ability to get them better, to get them in the gym, to refine their weaknesses. So from a player development standpoint, he's going to make a major impact with the Knicks.